Go for it. Okay, so this is the next installment of Jewish heroes and heroines, and for this week, so I want to speak about two amazing Torah personalities. One is actually a yahrzeit that should have been for last week. His name is, because his yahrzeit was on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, but last week we just devoted the whole class to the Rebbe, so we didn't get to do it. That is Mike Tress. Okay, he's one of the few Jewish heroes that is not a rabbi, okay, or a rebbetzin, or but yet he was one of the most meaningful Jews in the 20th century, and he's considered the architect of Orthodox Jewry in America. And because of him, we have the fact that it's cool to keep Shabbos in America, the fact that you have kosher pizza places in America. It's all because of him. That if it wouldn't have been for these pioneers, that Orthodox Judaism was looked at as a weed that we need to get rid of, and it's to a large degree because of him that he saved Orthodox Judaism in America. So he passed away in 1967, right after the 6 Day War, right, and Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. And the second person that his yahrzeit actually today, on Wednesday, is the Klausenberger Rebbe, okay, Rebbe Yekusiel Yehuda Halberstam, and he passed away in 1994 on Tes Tammuz, and it was actually literally 6 days after the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away, which was a very sad week for Judaism, for the Jewish people, I mean, and so he was actually, like, the contemporaries, that one of the most important parts of Mike Tress's life was during the Hatzalah, like during the movement to try to save as many people as possible from the Holocaust and to rebuild afterwards. Whereas he was in America, whereas the Klausenberger Rebbe was in the Holocaust. He was in the concentration camps, and he's one of the few Rebbes. He was one of the few tzaddikim that, you had people that were saved, that were able to escape before the war, and you had people that were killed in the war. But he's one of the very few tzaddikim that survived the war, that were in the death camps and they were able to survive. The Klausenberger Rebbe was one, the Blozhever Rebbe was another, the Boston Rebbe, everybody knows, but there's very few tzaddikim that were in the depths of hell and were able to rebuild afterwards. Okay. So first I want to talk about Mike Tress. Mike Tress, if you're interested, there's a biography about him called "They Called Him Mike," and he was. It was unique that, like, he was like a real hero. That he was from a religious family. His family was from a Hasidic descent, and he was clean shaven. He was a businessman. He was a successful businessman, and he never learned in yeshiva. He went to public school, and yet he was like the person that the Jewish world has to thank that American Judaism exists because of him. So, like, it just goes to show you that you don't have to come from amazing background. You don't have to be extremely learned. That you can be a real hero just by caring, just by having a passion and by having a heart. So his career, his life. He passed away. He was very young when he passed away. He was born in 1909, passed away in 1967. So he was 58 when he passed away. The truth is that, and this goes to show what kind of person he was, that his death was actually a direct result of a heart attack that happened. What happened was that he was in the Agudas Yisrael office in Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn, and this is an eyewitness report to the story that Moshe Aaron Stern, who made it to Israel, he was a mashgiach in Israel, but he was in the Aguda office when a telegram came that Rebbe Nachum Zemba was killed by the Nazis. Rebbe Nachum Zemba was the Rav of the Warsaw Ghetto, and he was a big Talmid Chacham, and he was a Ger Chassid, and Mike Tress, he never met Rav Nachman Zemba. He met there were Jewish leaders, Jewish giants that he had met, and he was connected to all of them, and he was involved in saving a lot of them. But Rav Nachman Zemba he never met. He'd heard what the American giants thought about Rav Nachman Zemba, but he'd never met him, and it was actually like one of there was a Jew that would listen to him speak to the American kids about the Jewish heroes, about our Gedolim in Europe, and Mike had never met them, and he had met them, but Mike spoke about them with such passion that it brought tears to his eyes. That like he had a greater appreciation for these rabbis than he did, even though it was just like stories. Anyway, so when the telegram came that Rav Nachman Zemba had been killed by the Nazis, so everybody who was in the office was just very broken. Mike Tress fainted. He fainted. He lost consciousness. Okay, from that day, like a couple of weeks later, so he passed away from a heart condition. That's just unreal. Like that's something that you can't fake. Fainting. That means that he's so much cared about having Jewish leaders, and he felt that he had lost everything when he had heard that. So he was very, 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 very involved in bringing over Judaism to the American youth, and his life really divides into two parts. Into first of all being the architect of American Jewry, and number two his Hatzalah doings and all of his projects, and trying to save as many people as possible and to rebuild afterwards. So he came to America, and in America the situation of just religious Judaism was like really, really pathetic. It was not cool. It was not cool to be Jewish. It was not cool to be religious, and it was like people were scorned. It was like the truth is like Israel had a similar thing. Like when the state of Israel was first founded, it was a similar thing. That like it was not cool to be religious, and like the fact that now we can be just openly religious and be proud to be religious is not something to be taken for granted. It's amazing revolution that's going on in the Jewish identity and the Jewish consciousness. So what did he do? So first of all, he felt that religious Judaism needs to have a network, and so he got involved in what's called Seirei Agudas Yisrael. Agudas Yisrael it's even now like there's such a thing as the World Aguda, like the Aguda convention. So that it's a huge worldwide international organization. But when he entered Aguda, it was more of a they call it the Shalashudas Club. Like a couple of like a dozen or so people would come together to have Shalashudas together on Shabbos, and they would have herring. That's what Aguda was, and so it's like 6 months after he joined, so he became the president. And actually those that were against him, they didn't think that they wanted to thought he was too much of a visionary. Anyway, so the first thing he did was he created youth groups. Okay, the concept of youth groups in America is because of him. So that youth groups he developed were called Perche for boys and Benos for girls. Okay, and we're talking, and he made a chain of hundreds of youth groups all over New York, all over the tri-state area, that people should get together Shabbos afternoon and do Jewish stuff. Okay, and he would travel from place to place, and he was very, very involved in all this. And what the people explained was that what he was doing was that what he was able to do, what he succeeded in doing, was to give over to kids that Judaism is not is not just a tradition that you have, that Judaism is the most precious gift that you could possibly own, and it's the greatest neches. It's the greatest possession that you have. That is the most. It's something which is worth fighting for. It's something which is worth dying for. It's something. It's the most precious thing that we have, is the fact that we have Judaism, and that was a change, and like a change in what the going idea in the street was really more that like there was a common expression in America, schwer zu sein Yid, like it's hard to be a Jew, and like it's that was the ideology that really killed American Jewry, that people grew up with this feeling that schwer zu sein Yid, that being a Jew involves sacrifice, it's really hard, and like he was trying to instill in them that it's something amazing, like it's crazy. Like he himself went to public school, and he it's a miracle that he was able to stay religious, let alone be such a powerhouse of spirituality. But what he was doing was actually saving the Jewry. There's a report from Moshe Wolfson, who is presently a mashgiach in Torah Vodas, and that he reports that in his elementary school, he went to Torah Vodas elementary school, and out of a class of 40 in a frum school, only 4 stayed religious. Okay, and all 4 of them were involved in these youth groups. Okay, so like this, like you would think, like, let alone the people going to public school, that they're gone, but like even the people going to yeshiva, like Judaism America was just withering and dying, and he was coming to save these kids. Okay, so another big accomplishment of his was he created Camp Aguda. Okay, Camp Aguda was the first religious sleepaway camp that existed in America. Okay, it came from his realization that there was no such thing, and there were kids going to like from Williamsburg. They were going to non-Jewish sleepaway camps, and he would see them going on these buses to sleepaway camps, to non-Jewish sleepaway camps, and he would cry. They're like, what's going to be with them? They're to be away from any Judaism for 2 months. Like, who knows what that could do to them? And it did. Obviously, it did. Like, being 2 months completely away from any religious environment will make a big difference on a kid. And it killed him that this was that this is what's happening. That there isn't an alternative. So he created Camp Aguda to be able to have this a Jewish camp that people are coming. Now he was very a big turning point in his life was a visit from Rochanan Wasserman. His yahrzeit is actually in 2 days from now. He was killed in the Holocaust, and I was planning on giving a whole thing about him as well, but we're not going to have time. But it's interesting that all the people that this week, so they're like, he was in America trying to save people from the Holocaust. He was one of them was a survivor of the Holocaust, and he was killed in the Holocaust. But Rav Chanan Wasserman, so he came to America in 1938. It's a very tragic story that he knowingly went back to the Holocaust. He realized that he knew that he was going to be killed. Like the Nazi regime was already growing, and they wanted to stop him. They wanted to hold him back, but he refused. He felt that he had the responsibility to his students, to his community, and he knowingly went back. And it didn't seem like he regretted it. Like, he felt that it was important for him to be there for them in their last moments. And he spoke to them before they went to be killed. He spoke to them like what they should be thinking as they're being killed. Anyway, but in 1938, so he came to America, and it was a very meaningful time for Mike Tress, and he told him 2 important things at that point. Number one, when he shook his hand, he said, "I'm leaving the future of American Jewry in your hands." That he's like this is up to you. This is, and number two, Number two, he asked him to do a very gutsy thing to do, and that is to leave his businesses. That until then, until 1938, so he was doing all of his stuff, all of his promotion of Judaism in America, as a side job, as like a hobby. No, I shouldn't call it a hobby. It was a side gig, but it was an important gig, but he was a very successful businessman. He had first of all, he had a textile company that he was the CEO of, and also he owned a third of a shoe polish company that was very successful. And he eventually he left the shoe polish company for religious reasons, because his partners refused to close on Shabbos, and that was a huge sacrifice for him. But he kept the other company, and he used his business as an opportunity to help people keep Shabbos. He would give a lot of religious girls jobs that they should be able to, to remind you, in those times it was very, very hard to keep Shabbos in America. Almost any job required the working on Shabbos, and if not, then you're fired. And it's famous stories of people that week after week after week would knowingly go into a new job, knowing that they're going to be fired the next Monday when they didn't show up on Shabbos. And there's even a story about a Jew that his sukkah decorations was in those times it was called pink slips. That his sukkah decorations he was proud of it. He was proud that he filled his sukkah. He had hundreds of pink slips. That because he's not going to break Shabbos, so every single Monday he got another pink slip, and that was his pride on sukkahs. That's how he decorated his sukkah. Okay, beautiful. So Mike was able to give a lot of religious girls jobs in his textile place. Now, with all of the heroes that we're learning about, so what's really amazing is that they were visionaries, but they never lost focus on the individual. That they really cared about every single Jew. And I'll share with you a couple of amazing stories about Mike that really shows this. There was in Camp Aguda, so you heard what I was saying about Camp Aguda? He was the first religious. He created the first religious sleepaway camp in America. And so there's a mother that came to Camp Aguda from the non-religious family, that they wanted she wanted her kids to have a taste of Judaism. So she brings her kids up to Camp Aguda, up to the camp in the summer. I don't know what she was thinking. And she's like, hey, I would like my kids to be able to come. Is it okay? And so the guy obviously says, I'm sorry, there's no room. They literally had no room. And they walk back, and they're all crying. The mother and the two kids are crying, and who did he bump into? None other but Mike himself. So he asked what's going on. So she said, we wanted to bring my kids to have a taste of Judaism, to bring her. And they said, there's no room. He said, no, for you we have room. Don't worry. And he goes and he finds, there's literally no beds, but he finds this forgotten bunk bed, and he's schlepping it himself. He brings it into the bunk, into the what's it called, the camp, the cabin. Yeah, and he's schlepping himself. He said, "Okay, we found your beds. Okay, welcome." So, and of course that summer was very transforming in those kids' lives, and they became religious, and they lived happily ever after. And now there was a satmar chassid. Satmar chassid that somebody told him that if you ever need help in America, so the person to go to is Mike Tress. He's the head of Tzirei Agudas Yisrael, and so Satmar just is not in politics, politically, Satmar was not on the same page as Agudas Yisrael. Agudas Yisrael was more like modern, more like with it. Like Satmar was more like let's be as much as possible as if we're still in Europe. Kind of, it was a different ideology. So he said, like, come on, Aguda, like, I'm a Satmar. I'm not going to go to Aguda. And besides, Mike is a guy. It was like and like I'm going to Mike. And so, but like he was like he lost a job and like he didn't have. It was desperate. So like okay, it's time to. They have to do something. So he goes over like. So are you like I'm looking for Mike Tress? So like his like standard, his mantra was that how can I help you? Like when somebody comes, like what can I do for you? Like that's so he tells them like that I just lost my job and I don't know how to do it. So what's your profession? So he says I work with glass. So he like writes something down, and he said okay I have a friend who's looking for a glass worker. You've got a job. You go to this guy, and we got you a job. Okay, so that's the. I forgot this story. We got the story because once one of his sons, he had 11 children. Mike Tress had 11 children, 4 boys and 7 girls, and so once one of his sons, somebody came over to him, and he saw Tress on his talus bag. So he says, "Are you?" He's like he spoke to Yiddish, like "Du bist der Sinn von Michal Tress." So he said. So he started crying. He started like, "I owe my life to your father." So he tells him the story, and he said that, and that's not the end of the story. 2 months later, so my boss, he goes over to me, and he says, "Listen, I want you to tell Mike that he doesn't have to pay your paycheck anymore." Because you proved yourself, and I'm going to start paying you. So Mike didn't tell him that the reason I got you a security job is because I told him I'm going to pay your paycheck. It's just everything just behind the scenes. Just there's somebody that needs help, I'm there to help him. Okay. There was an older woman that from Toronto that was in touch with one of Mike Tress's kids, and he gets a phone call. That she's in the hospital, she's not doing well, and she wants to see him. Okay, so this is a different one of the kids, and so she goes to the hospital, and she asks all of her family to leave. Okay, so she said, "I want to tell you something that I've never told anybody before, and that is that I owe everything to your father." The story was that I moved from Detroit, and I was told that like if you need anything in New York, so the person to go to was Mike Tress, and I was starting to be a journalist, and so in New York, so I needed a typewriter, and the only way I could use a typewriter was to go to the public library, and the only time that the typewriters were available for free was only on Shabbos. So I said, okay, like, what can I do? So I decided I'm gonna stop giving Shabbos because I need to make a living. So she comes to the office in Bedford Avenue and the Agudas Yisrael office, and she's like just to get to know him, just introducing herself, just like I heard you're a good person to know, and so just like as a way of passing, she says like that I recently came to New York, and from a religious family, I decided I'm going to stop keeping Shabbos because. He said, "What? You're going to stop keeping Shabbos? Why would you stop keeping Shabbos?" So she said, because I need a typewriter. So he says, "Oh, why should you stop keeping Shabbos because of a typewriter? We happen to have an extra typewriter." And so this typewriter, the Agudas Yisrael typewriter, it was not an extra typewriter. It was the only typewriter that the Aguda office had. Not only that, but it was his personal typewriter that he had donated to the Aguda office. And so she writes that she tells him that he personally it was a huge, very, very heavy typewriter. And he picked up the typewriter and he said, where are we going? Lead the way. And so he carries this. He was scared that she's not going to take it. She was scared that she's not going to take it because it's too heavy, and she's going to end up breaking Shabbos. He personally schlepped this extremely heavy typewriter 2 blocks away to make sure that she gets it. To make sure. Now this is an amazing story to me because he was doing very important things in Aguda. And Aguda absolutely needed a typewriter, and so when he was doing this, he was stopping work for his organization. And it's something that we've spoken about in different times. Like there's people that they care about their organization, and there's people that care about people. And he was a person that cared about people. He was a person that if there's anything I can do for you, I'm there for you. And there is nothing else besides helping an individual. And that's just how we lived.
What was her name?
What?
What was her name?
Her name? No.
You said from Detroit, right?
We're talking about in the 50s.
Maybe. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm from Detroit.
Yeah.
Grandparents. I mean, it's the way back.
Okay, so
You don't know what I'm saying?
no,
What?
it's not the point.
Never
Right,
know.
yeah.
Jewish driver for you all the way
Yeah.
back.
Okay, so
I wanted to know.
sorry, I feel bad.
All right.
So anyway, so that was the first part of his life was just helping Judaism flourish in America. Then came the Holocaust, and then things really took a whole different spin on what his focus was, and so now we get to the second thing that Rav Chanan told him, 1938, that besides telling him that the future of Judaism is in your hands, of American Judaism is in your hands, so we also told him that I want you to devote your life to this, and he actually he liquidated everything. He sold all of his shares. He not only that, he gave every penny he had to Aguda. When they had to buy the plot for Camp Aguda, so they wanted a collateral, and the only collateral that they could think of was his personal life insurance policy. And the bank accepted his life insurance policy as the collateral, and sure enough, the time came that Aguda didn't pay up, and they didn't have funds to pay, and the bank actually cashed in his life insurance policy. And so when he passed away, his family didn't have a cent. His wife, she was really a hero. She was completely supportive of everything he did, and she was as much a hero as he was. Hinda Tress, and she the fact that he allowed him to do this with complete support, and so she had to get a job right after the shiva for her husband because they needed just food for Shabbos, money for food for Shabbos, and the fact that her husband was the hero of the Jewish people didn't make a difference. There was no there's no funds coming. There's no putting together. Nobody had money. Nobody cared to put together such a fund. She had to work, and so he gave every cent. He mortgaged his house 3 times to be able to have more funds to save Jews. Now what was he doing? He was doing extremely important things, especially in the second half of his life, he was working with the Hatzalah movement with just trying to save as many people from death in the Holocaust as he could. So he was doing lots of things. He was doing, first of all, he was trying to get, I don't even know how to pronounce this, affidavits to try to get visas. And every visa application was 6 feet long, and they had to do it 4 times. You need four copies. And so they were working around the clock. They were working on Shabbos. It was a mitzvah to get these. Anybody that you can get out of Europe you're saving their lives. Okay, and he was unique. And there was a lot of organizations that were doing Hatzalah, but he was unique in the fact that he was more passionate than anybody else, and he also was unique in the fact that he was totally willing to not follow the rules. Like a lot of people they would take no as an answer. Like, I'm sorry, we can't do that. And for him, he would not take no for an answer. He was able to get 900 fake passports to Latin America. He was able to get over 1,000 fake passports to South Africa. He was like he knew that this is Jewish lives are at stake, and like, I don't care if it's illegal. And he was wiring money illegally to another person, another famous personality in the Hatzalah movement was of Michal Ber Weissmandel. You might have heard of him. No, he was incredibly. He personally helped 1,200 people escape from the death chambers, and so he was wiring her money illegally because it was during war times, and so the Aguda personally, Aguda themselves, meaning Mike himself, was responsible for getting 2,000 people to escape from death, which is unreal. And then, so this is it's really, 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 really amazing. That's during the Hatzalah, and then there was as much effort in post-war in the saving what they call the Sheres HaPleta, that the leftover survivors, and this one thing that was very, very meaningful, life-changing, is that he spent a month in 1946. He spent a month in the DP camp, okay, in the displaced person camp, and the people there reported how it was so different than any other officials that came to visit. Everybody else, like, they came and they took a photo op and they gave him a couple of words of inspiration and they left. Mike, he insisted on they paid for a hotel for him, and he refused to sleep in the hotel. He insisted on sleeping with them for a month. He ate with them. He slept with them. He went over to them. He wanted to hear their stories, and he cried with them, and he would he took names. He took down everybody's name, and when he was back in America, he would put ads in the paper that anybody who's a relative of so and so. So if you want to sponsor him he wants to get out. So he wants to get to America, and he would take letters, and he insisted on personally delivering letters from everybody in the DP camp. Okay, he came with 8 pairs of tefillin to be able to distribute to people, and one of the people he eventually settled in Muncie. This guy that he came to make and he was hoping to get tefillin, and he didn't realize that they were out of tefillin, and Mike said, "Hold on a second," and he gave him his personal tefillin. He gave him his own pair of tefillin. He said, "I can get tefillin in America. You're stuck here, so I'll be okay. I'll manage." He came back. He came back in rags. He not only did he give away his tefillin, he gave away everything. He came back without socks. He came out with he switched his shirt for one of their ripped shirts. He gave his pants away. He came back. They didn't. He was a person that he was well to do. He was a successful businessman, and he came back in rags. They didn't recognize him, and he said "What's the big deal? I can buy new clothes. These guys are stuck in Europe," and his care for them was just knew no bounds. That he would do anything for them. When there was refugees in America, so he was looking out for them. There was a family that stayed in his own house for a year. Okay, during this year he was he would walk the kids to school together with his own kids. His wife would prepare lunch for the whole family with their own family. They would eat together. The upper floor of the Gouda office became a refugee place just for people to sleep for free, and he was just he was making shidduchim, is walking them down to the chuppah, and one thing that I want to note as well is that with a lot of with a lot of heroes, with a lot of like very special people, like their like hero life takes precedence over their family life, and he was not like that. That he never forgot his family. He first of all he had tremendous respect to his wife. That he insisted that she did not get up during Shabbos meals. He was the one. He personally set the table Friday afternoon, and he served on Shabbos meal, and like it became like a thing in the Tress house that like the men serve and women don't serve, and he also insisted on every Sunday he would come to speak to his kids' teachers. He was very, very involved in his kids' education. He would take them to trips to the ferry, to the lake, and also interesting is that he never spoke about what he did. Like his kids grew up thinking that they had a normal father, and only after he passed away did they find out that he was like such a hero. And it's he said, like one of his kids said, like it's true. Like I realized that like all of the big rabbis came to when we make weddings and stuff. But like I thought that that they come to everybody. I thought that like that's what happens. I didn't realize that like all the gedolim that there is like the gedolim looked at him like he was the biggest Jew of the generation. That literally that one of the Rebbes, I think the Klausenberger, the Klausenberger Rebbe, that was very close to him. So he told him that he had a dream. He had a dream that the Mashiach came, and at the head of the table was Mike, and all the Rebbes were like at the bottom of the table, and one of the Rebbes was like one of the Klausenberger Rebbe's friends asked him like, who's that like clean shaven guy at the head of the table? He said, what, you don't? So he told them, what, you don't know Mike? He's bigger than all of us. So this is the story of Mike Tress. He was like that. He was a person who really, really cared. A person who really, really didn't stop. And like I will end off with a very beautiful anecdote that one day, so his daughter read in the paper that the shoe polish company that he had owned a third of, so that they had sold to Revlon for $3 million. And so his daughter said, "Whoa, Dad! Like, imagine what would have happened if you would have kept your shares. It would have been so different." And he said to her, "Wow, Baruch Hashem, it would have been so different." And so like he was saying that like if I wouldn't have had that extra money, from selling the shares, I wouldn't have been able to save another Jew. That like thank God that I was able to use it the way I did, and I wouldn't have been such a loser to just have this $1 million. What I'm going to do with $1 million if I could have saved another Jew. All right, so that's Mike. That's Elimelech Gabriel Tress, and he's amazing. Baruch Hashem that we have heroes to follow. Okay, and the next person I want to speak about tonight is the Klausenberger Rebbe. Okay, and if you thought the Mike was amazing, so the Klausenberger Rebbe was even more amazing, if that's possible. He was. I should show you pictures. Okay, first of all. First of all, I'll show you pictures of Mike Tress. Okay, this is here for you guys. Okay, he was clean shaven, good looking, American businessman. Okay, and so that's Mike. And the Klausenberger Rebbe is Rabbi Kasil Yehuda Halberstam, and so he was a Rebbe. He was a tzaddik. He was a very, very holy man. And he was a Rebbe. He was a Rebbe even before the war. He was a Rebbe in a place called Klausenberger. It's a small shtetl, and Klausenberger Rebbe. Klausenberger Rebbe. Okay, this is like these are like the what he looked like in the end of his life. But you can even see pictures of him when he was like during the war. So he was a very amazing Rebbe before the war, and like you said, that he was taken to the concentration camps, and he was in Auschwitz for an entire year, and there's thing like, and he was unreal the way that he was able to give strength to everybody and be strong himself. And talk about it. He was very old. Like he lived in. I said before that he died in 1994. Actually, 6 days after the Bavitcher Rebbe passed away, and he was talking about his experiences, and so his mysterious nefesh, his the how his sacrifice for keeping his amunah, keeping his Judaism, is unreal. He would say that when he first came to Auschwitz, he came on a Friday, and he really didn't want to eat not kosher food, to eat tray food, and so he came on Friday and said that they told him that kimarois to bring an essen, and they said there was like they called it flesh, they called it meat. He said, "Chleisen ist das seven flesh, seven straw." They were like, I wasn't sure if it was really meat or really straw, but if he called it meat, so probably not kosher. So he refused to eat, and so he stayed behind. And the next day, so there's more food, and he said, he's just broken. He didn't want to eat not kosher, and he was starving. He's starving to death, and he starts crying. And he said he was surprised at himself that he started crying, because he didn't cry in those days. He started crying to Hashem, and he said, Hashem, you took everything from me. You took everything. You took my clothes, you took my family, but now I'm stuck with the middle of Goyim, and you want me to eat treif? And he was just broken and crying. Suddenly somebody comes he was alone on the barracks, and somebody comes to him and says, "Dibis the Klausenberger Rav? You're the Klausenberger Rav?" And he didn't want to say anything, because to be a rabbi was a death sentence. Like the Nazis especially loved killing rabbis, so he didn't say anything. So he says, "Dibis the Klausenberger? There's somebody waiting for you." So he comes out, and this person says, "You're Klausenberger Rav?" So he says, he looks, yeah. So he says, your uncle was the Kishinev Rav? So he said, how's he know I'm here? How does he know that my uncle is? How does he know who I am? He doesn't know. And so he says, yeah. How do you know who I am? And so he says, I brought you food. And he brings a big loaf of bread and a big plate of marmalade, of like a jelly, and what the heck? And he says, go eat. Go back to the barracks and eat. And so he goes back in Shabbos. So he makes kiddush. He makes kiddush on the bread, and so he says, I saw then that Hashem is with me, even here, even in this land, even this hell. I saw that Hashem is with me, and he made a promise to himself that he's gonna only keep kosher. And the entire time in Auschwitz, he would trade his like whatever not kosher food there was, he would trade it for bread. He'd only eat bread and water the entire time in Auschwitz, and he was able to survive. And he is an icon of a person who lost everything and was able to rebuild. The Klausenberger Rebbe, so before the war, so he had a wife and 11 children, and 10 of his children and his wife were killed the first day they came to Auschwitz. And his oldest son, so he actually survived the war, and he passed away from typhus in the DP camp. So he was a person that he lost all of his chassidim, he lost all of his family, he lost there was nothing left, and he was an icon of a person who lost everything and said, I'm going to start again. And he came and he built this chassidus and he remarried and he had another 7 children, and his from the world of Sanz Klausenberger in the world today is there's he built a kehila in this kehila. There's Sanz in Yerushalayim, there's Sanz in Netanya, there's Sanz in Borough Park, there's like in Sanz the Chassidus they have this monopoly game of Sanz in the world. Every street is named after another community of Sanz, and that's all because of one yid that lost everything. They said, no, I'm going to rebuild. Okay, so like if you ever think that you've reached the bottom and they said that that's it, you're giving up, that no, there is no giving up, that look at the Klausenberger Rebbe, that he was able to make everything from nothing. Okay, so now he was a very holy man. He's a very holy man. I mean, the source of everything. The source of everything was he had a very, very deep emunah in Hashem, and he told the students afterwards that not for one moment did he think badly of Hashem. Not one moment was he upset at Hashem. Not one moment did he think of Hashem that if you're really there, then you're doing a bad job. He just accepted everything that Hashem was doing to him. There was a crazy story that once there was a year that came to Rabbi Yaakov Kamnetsky, and he was a completely assimilated Jew, and he said, do you know anything? Do you know any Torah? Do you ever learn? He said, no, I don't know anything. Do you know Shema Yisrael? He said, no, I don't know Shema Yisrael. And he said, actually, there's one thing I know. It says, Tachas asher le'avata es Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'v'tuv le'vav. There's a pasuk in Torah that says that it's because you didn't serve Hashem with happiness and with gladness of the heart. And so, how do you know the pasuk? This is the pasuk which is in Parshas Kisavai, that it says in the Tochacha, in the all of the punishments that Hashem says that at the end of days there's going to be big punishments. So it says in that pasuk that the reason why Hashem is sending these punishments is because you didn't serve Hashem with happiness. How's this completely? So he doesn't know Shema Yisrael. He knows this random pasuk. And so he says that when I was in the concentration camps, so there was this old Jew that was sitting next to me, and then we were working together, and every time that the entire time that he was working, he was constantly saying this pasuk over and over and over again. And so the Rebbe says, "Oh my gosh, that you were sitting next to the Klausenberger Rebbe." And he never lost Amunah. He had a very, very strong faith that whatever Hashem is doing to me I deserve it, and certainly Hashem is not double crossing me, and he's a very, very holy man, and there's crazy stories that show about just how holy he was. So first of all, the story with the bread and the marmalade. So the Rebbe said that he never saw this man again. That he has no idea how he knew him. He had no idea how he knows who his uncle is. He had no idea how he knows where it was, and he has no idea. Also, he was the only one in the barracks. So, and he never saw him again. So it sounds like he's trying to say that this is Eliyahu Navi that was coming to save him, because it's just too crazy otherwise. Now, one of his accomplishments was that he created the Laniado Hospital in Netanya. So at the Chanukah Sabayas, at the inauguration of the Laniado Hospital, so he told the following story, that it was that during that in the concentration camp, so he was once shot in the arm, and so to go to the hospital, he didn't want to go to the hospital. because to go to the hospital in the concentration camps, like nobody came back from the hospital. So he took some bark of a tree, and he put it against his thing, and he took a twig and he tied it to himself to try to stop the bleeding, and miraculously, 3 days later, it seemed like it was okay, and he says, Hashem, if you are able to get me out of this alive, I swear to you that I'm going to build a hospital to help people, to help all kinds of people to become healthy. And so he said this story. He said this story that at the inauguration of the hospital, and it was like people didn't understand. Like when he built the hospital, that he said, Rabbi, you don't build a hospital. You're a rabbi. You put up the mezuzah to the hospital. And so he says, you know what? I like your idea, but backwards. I'm going to build a hospital, and I'm going to build a hospital about in the way of Torah, and then I'm going to invite you to put out the mezuzah, so you could have a schus to put out the mezuzah. and in this inauguration, so he said that his dream of building a hospital was to have a hospital that everybody in the hospital it's going to be Jewish friendly, that it's going to be easy to keep Torah in the hospital, and most importantly, that every person that works in the hospital knows that to heal a human being is the biggest mitzvah in the Torah. And it shouldn't be a hospital that people are doing this because this is my job. It should be a hospital that's doing it from love, from care, from the appreciation of how awesome it is to do what you're doing. Okay? So he felt that it was a miracle that he was saved from this bullet. A crazy story that I sort of feel uncomfortable even saying such a crazy story because it's just so it sounds like it's a fairy tale. But the Rebbe said the story, and he said it, and there were witnesses that said the story. The witnesses that they were part of this. And that's during the death march. The death march was from Auschwitz to Dachau. So it was actually Tisha B'Av. It was actually the Tisha B'Av Nidcha. It was a Sunday, and it was actually the 10th of Av because Tisha B'Av fell out on Shabbos. And so he took off his shoes. He took off his shoes because he wanted to keep Tisha B'Av. And when the Nazis noticed they took off his shoes, and so he wanted to harass him, so he told them to walk on the side where there was broken glass, but he didn't stop. He didn't waver, and it was horribly hot, and he told everybody that just keep up the hope. Don't give up. Like if anybody would give up, they would die. Don't give up. I promise you, tonight there's going to be water. And so what's it mean? Like tonight there's going to be water, and like the Nazis would bring him next to a lake, and purposely not allow them to go to the lake to drink, and like anybody who would run away to the lake, they would shoot them. And so, but the Rebbe said, like, don't give up. The Rebbe promises there's going to be water. And so that night, he said, no, Rebbe, where's the water? We didn't get water. So he says, okay, everybody, they had spoons. The Nazis had spoons, like for eating. Everybody, I want you to dig with your spoon next to where you're sleeping, and you'll get water. And everybody dug in the dirt where they were sleeping, and suddenly water came out of the ground. And the Rebbe said this, and one of his Hasidim was there, and he said, if you don't believe me, so ask Abba, he was there. And he was able to bring down this miracle that I don't know how many people were there, that like all the Jews in this death march, like 1,000 Jews were getting water out of nowhere. And he told them afterwards that that was you were drinking from the Be'er Shel Miriam, from like the water, the well of Miriam, that the miraculous water that in the desert, that when there was no that I was able to get the Be'er Shel Miriam to feed you. And it's completely unreal. the last miracle story that I want to share is that in the DP camps, so Eisenhower came, and so what you call it, he was the general. He was the general that then. So there was a whole dispute within the DP camp who's going to be who's going to be able to say to greet him. So they decided that he was the holiest person around. It's appropriate that he should. Everyone had covered for Klausenberger. Everyone agreed that he was just an angel, a superhuman. But he told them just one thing: just don't talk about the Holocaust. Just talk about the rebuilding, about the strength. And he didn't listen. He spoke about it was Yom Kippur. It was Yom Kippur when Eisenhower came, and he put on his talus, and he started speaking about how America is just as guilty as Hitler, that he could have done more and he didn't stop it, and that's what he was, and Eisenhower was very taken by the holiness of Klausenberger, and he asked the Rebbe for a bracha. Could you bless me? And he told him, and this story is told by the translator. The translator, his name was Meir Birnbaum. There's a book about him as well, the Lieutenant Birnbaum. He for many years he lived in Mattersdorf in Jerusalem, and he would go every day to daven at the Kotel. You can read about him, Lieutenant Birnbaum. So he was the translator of this meeting between the Klausenberger Rebbe and Eisenhower, and so the Rebbe told him that in the merit of the fact that you liberated the Jews from the death camp, so I bless you that you should go to the highest ranks that's possible in your country. And sure enough, 6 years later, he was nominated to be president of the United States. Okay, so his bracha was niskayim, and there was another general. I forgot his name. That saw that saw that he was. Who was with him? That saw that he was giving a bracha, and he said, I also want a bracha. I also want a blessing. And this, I think it's something like patov, something like, no, maybe Patton. So he was a big anti-Semite. In fact, Eisenhower fired him from being general because he was so anti-Semitic, and so he was with them, and he said, I also want a blessing, and so the Rebbe said, you should have a misa mashona. Misa mashona means like a strange, a disgusting death, like a bad death. You should have a bad death. Okay, and so Lieutenant Birnbaum didn't know what to say. Like, how could I tell him that? He said again. He said, and so he thought of some flowery way to say that in a way that doesn't mean what it means. And so amazingly, 2 weeks later, so General Patton was in a he was in a car accident, and he became paralyzed from the neck down. And 2 weeks later after that, he passed away. Okay, so I think that's crazy that both of the Rebbe's brachas, that they just came so obviously true in unreal ways, that this one became the president of the United States, and this one died 2 weeks later. So he was a holy man. He was a very holy man. But I think just more important than how holy he was how of a deeper person, how much he cared. There's a famous story that he would tell, that once in the concentration camps, that he was being beaten. He's being and after he was beaten, so one of the capos walked over to him, and he said to him, said, "No, Rabbi, it's like, you say, you daven with, you're still saying, Ata v'chatanu mikol ha'amim, that Hashem, we're the chosen nation." And so he answered him. He said, "I don't know if I had proper kavana until now. I don't know if I had proper simcha when I said Ata v'chatanu until now. But now, for sure, I'm going to say Ata v'chatanu mikol ha'amim, that thank you Hashem, that we're the chosen nation. That thank you, I'm so fortunate, I'm so lucky that I'm the one being oppressed and I'm not like them. Look at what could have happened to me if I wouldn't have had Torah, if I wouldn't have had Judaism. Then look what would have been of me. I would have been this Nazi that's torturing us." And so he was able to see how fortunate he was to be a Jew within this hell. Now the famous story that 1945 in the DP camp. So he was trying to get a minyan, and he was leading the services, and he gave a drasha on Yom Kippur, and the drasha went that he opened up the siddur, the Yom Kippur siddur, and he starts reading. It says, "Ashamnu, we're guilty. Ashamnu, what? We're guilty. What are we guilty of? What did we do wrong? Bagadnu, we betrayed you. What? We betrayed you? How that, if anything, you betrayed us. Gazalnu, we stole. We stole. Well, we had money. We had money to steal. That this is all wrong. This is whoever wrote this didn't know what was the situation. This is we have to close the machzor. We have to. This davening was not meant for us." Then he said that, but there's one thing that we have to ask Hashem forgiveness for, and that is that how many times did we go to sleep at night and not want to wake up in the morning? He said that a crazy thing that happened in his particular camp, in his particular barrack. So they would start every morning with this sadistic game that they would pick a person randomly, and they would have to take this whole load of bricks, and if one of the bricks would fall down, then he would put two in instead, and if the person would fall down, then he would beat him to death. And like that's how every morning would start. And so he said that how many times did I go to sleep and say, "Hashem, I don't want this anymore. I just don't wake me up in the morning." That's what we have to ask Hashem forgiveness for giving up, for not having a desire to live, for not wanting to keep on fighting, to not desire that Judaism should continue. Now in the DP camp, so he had amazing accomplishments, and he created the yeshiva, he created the seminary. I heard a testimony of one of the girls in the girls' school that said how it was the first time she was ever learning Torah. He would give a class, and he was teaching these girls, and she was interesting teachings. And any girl that something was on her mind, anything that anybody that she was troubled, that he would be there for her. He would talk to him. He would help them get married. He would be walked into the chuppah. He would give them brachas by the badekin, and he was mamish, the father of the entire DP camp. Erev Yom Kippur in the DP camp, the entire Erev Yom Kippur, he was giving brachas to the kids, just like a father gives brachas to the children. 500, 700 children he would give. This is how we spent Erev Yom Kippur. There's in America, before he came to Israel, he came to America. He created a kehillah in Union City, and so when he was in America, so he heard that there was a person that was from his kehillah, from Klausenberger, from before the war, that was there, and he wanted very much to meet up with him. He sent him a message that he meet up with him, but he didn't want to come. He didn't he knew that the Rebbe is going to be upset. He's not religious, and so he didn't want to come. He didn't give up, and eventually he gave in, and he came, and so they're talking, And so he said, and he says, like, no, what happened to you? Like, you used to be an Erlich Yid, you used to be a Frum Yid. And so he knew this was coming, and he started crying, and he said, Rebbe, I was the worst in my family. All of my family was better Jews than me, and they were all so holy and so good, and Hashem took them all. Hashem killed them all. And I'm the worst, and I'm the one who's supposed to live. Like then I'm not interested. Like that means that why do I want to be interested in the Judaism? That if that's what happens when you're good at Judaism. And the Rebbe was silent, and he said, you know, you're right. I feel the same way. I'm also the worst in my family, and all of my cousins, they were all holier than me, or they're all better Jews than me, and Hashem took them all. It doesn't make any sense. It must be that Hashem just wants us schleppers. That Hashem wants something from us. That there's something that we can give him that the best Jews can't give him. And so he didn't give him a word of rebuke. He just gave him love, and that shook something inside of him, and that moved something inside of him, and like he said, you know, like if that's the way the Rebbe feels, then I can do this. And this is how he was able to bring people to Judaism. Like, there's hundreds of people that, because of his excitement for Judaism and because of his love, so they were able to stay religious, become religious. And I'll just end off with one last story. The last drasha that he gave was actually in Yerushalayim, and tons of people came to his drasha. And in this last drasha that he said before he passed away, so he said that the only way to deal with children nowadays is only with love. That you can't be harsh with your children, you can't be strict with your children, that you have to only be soft and only be love, only give love to your children. And if they love you, then they'll listen to what you want. Like it doesn't work to be strict. They're gonna, if you're strict with them, they're gonna rebel. If you show them love, then they're gonna want to do what you want. And then he started crying, and he turned to Hashem, and he said, Hashem, that we also need love. That if you want us to do what you want, you have to show us love. From Auschwitz, people aren't going to do tshuva from Auschwitz. Hashem, please give us love. And that was his last drasha. That was his last will and testament is that how we need to show love to everybody, and how that Hashem needs to show love to us, and how just his desire is that we should just have just a good life and be able to just be happy and be well. And so his such a holy, godly person that just to imagine that it's just 30 years ago that he passed away is unreal. That there's people alive today that knew him, that he would just to hear him daven, he would constantly cry. He would daven forever. He would daven for he would daven like hours a day. Like somebody, like on a regular Shabbos, he would daven like 2 hours, Pesukah de Zimra. It was unreal. He was just so. I forgot to mention, by the way, that he was also a tremendous Talmid Chacham. That he was one of the Gedolei Poskim. He was one of the biggest halachic authorities alive, which is unheard of, to be a Hasidic Rebbe and to be one of the halachic authorities. And so just the way he would cry to Hashem constantly is just like you can look it up. You can just like to hear him crying in davening. He had a very unique custom that he would add words in Yiddish in the middle of davening. In the middle of davening, in the middle of Megillah, in the middle of davening, like he would, and so you hear him. There's a recording of him on Sukkot and Hoshana Rabbah that he was saying one of the Hashanas, and he starts crying to Hashem like in Yiddish, and like that Hashem, that even though it's so hard for us, we still keep on doing it, and everybody's answering after him. It's just unreal. Just like how passionate he was, and how just his relationship with Hashem was so deep. So just you hear him, and you just want to be a better Jew. So Ashreinu, we're so lucky, we're so fortunate that we have heroes like this, and God bless us that we should be able to keep on their legacy. B'ezrat Hashem. Chaim.